So you just booked a Royal Caribbean cruise. Congratulations! The hard part's over, right? Now you just wait for vacation?
Absolutely not. If you show up to the port without doing a little bit of homework, you're going to miss out on the best shows, you're going to miss the best dining times, and you're likely going to spend way more money than you need to. I'm Gary.
I'm Kara. We've taken over 25 Royal Caribbean cruises, and here are our top tips to help you prepare for your amazing Royal Caribbean cruise.
All right, before we start the fun stuff, we're going to do the basics. First, if you don't already have the Royal Caribbean app, download it right now. Oh, wait.
That's enough.
Okay, you've got it. The app is sort of going to be the center of your universe during your cruise. It's your daily planner. It's got all of the listings for all the shows. It's got all the dining information. You can purchase excursion. You can purchase packages. You don't exactly have to have the app if you cruise, but you really have to have the app when you cruise. So if you're new to Royal Caribbean, please download the app. It's got some quirks. There's some things about it that people don't like, but if you play around with it, look at all the little options that are at the bottom of the app and you get used to where everything's located, you can become an expert in no time. There are really great features in there. You know, things like when you're on board, you can message the other people that are in your party.
For free. That's
you
huge.
can mark all things that you want to do in your calendar. And again, it lists the whole daily program. It's really important that you have the app. So go ahead and download that.
So secondly, check your travel documents. If you're traveling from a U.S. port back to the same U.S. port, technically you can travel with a birth certificate and a government ID.
Right. And that birth certificate needs to be your official birth certificate. Raised seal from the county or city that you were born in. It can't be one of the decorative ones from a hospital. It can't be laminated. It can't be a weird photocopy of it. It needs to be an official birth certificate. So although technically you can travel with this, with your birth certificate and your government issued ID, you know, if you're traveling from Miami and returning back to Miami, you can do that. It's never recommended though, because
not a good idea.
If something happens in a foreign port and you're off the ship and you have to have some sort of medical emergency or something happens to somebody in your party and you need to stay in that foreign country, you now can't fly home because you don't have a passport to get back in the country. And there's emergency ways of getting those passports, but it's going to make your life much harder when you're already stressed.
Right.
So unless you're planning on going on this cruise and really never leaving the cruise ship and returning back to the same U.S. port, it's highly recommended you have a passport.
So definitely, if you can, get a passport. It's not that much of a problem. But just know, even if you have a current passport, it has to be valid for 6 months past the day you'll be on your cruise, because a lot of other countries don't allow you to travel on that if it expires within 6 months of travel.
Right. And that's 6 months from the last day of your cruise. And unfortunately, in my case, I learned this the hard way a few years back, where I looked at my passport and we were actually traveling the next year and I had done the math wrong and realized that I needed a passport emergency style. So I had to drive to Miami from Orlando for 3 hours. And then I realized once I got there, I had forgotten my birth certificate, which I needed to get the passport. So I had to drive back to Orlando without a passport and then do it again the next day. So just check your passport in advance. As long as you have 6 months of time remaining from the end of your cruise, you're good to go. If you don't, there's really easy ways to renew your passports online now. It goes super fast. And if you're applying for it for the first time, you'll probably need a little bit more time. You'll probably need a couple months in advance. But if you apply in advance, give yourself plenty of time, you won't have any problems. So
adults can get those and children. Children can also get passports. Highly recommend that.
Right.
Okay, now we get into the fun stuff. Research. Honestly, it's very fun. One of the things that we personally recommend is to join a Facebook group. Usually there is a Facebook group for every specific sailing, not just the ship you're on, which is also a great idea, not just all Royal Caribbean, which is also a great idea, but literally the date of the cruise you're going to take. Join that public Facebook group because this is real-time intel from people who are either on that ship or going to make plans for that specific sailing.
Yeah, it's really helpful if you're in that Facebook group. You've got people that are doing the exact same sailing as you. So if they hear about information in advance, or if they know something you don't know, a lot of stuff gets posted. It's just a way for you to keep up with what's happening with your exact sailing from people who are very interested in that sailing. Most of the people in those groups are very active. The admins who run those groups are super involved, and they really take their their responsibilities seriously with regards to
Mhm.
posting that information as much as they can and making sure there's good information that's put out.
It's also a venue, if you have questions, you can ask that in the group. And a
Mhm.
lot of times you'll get some very good answers from very helpful people who are happy to share their knowledge of Royal Caribbean or that ship or that sailing date. And it'll make your experience a lot better too.
Right. All right. Next up, let's talk about the Royal Caribbean Cruise Planner. Two places that exist. Number one, it's in the app that we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Number two, it's on the website. And this is where you're going to spend money on your cruise before you get there. So think things like your drink packages, your
Mhm.
Wi-Fi packages, any excursions you want to pre-purchase. If you're buying any decorations for people on board, if there's a birthday or an anniversary, that all exists inside the cruise planner. The main rule that you want to think about when you're booking a Royal Caribbean cruise is anything you're going to buy on board is going to be cheaper if you buy it in advance.
Truly.
100% of the time. So if you know for sure you want a drink package or the Wi-Fi package, it is definitely going to be cheaper to buy it in advance in the cruise planner. And the great thing about the Royal Caribbean Cruise Planner is if you purchase something, let's say you buy a drink package, and again, you know, the prices don't really matter. They're all different for each sailing and for different times of the year and different sales. But let's say you spend $70 a day on that drink package and you buy it right now. Well, you find out next week there's a sale and it's now $65 a day. It's very easy. You just cancel the old one and you purchase the new one. There's no penalty for purchasing things early. So the advice that's normally given with Royal Caribbean is if you know you want it, just buy it right now and then watch the prices as you go forward. There's a whole bunch of websites out there that will help you with this. You can actually put in what you paid and they'll help you with tracking. If there's some folks who are more technical in the group and you really want some impressive tracking software, I'll link that in the description of the video. It does require some setup, but it makes tracking every one of your cruises and all the things in your cruise planner remarkably easy once you have it set up. So can't recommend highly enough. It doesn't matter what it is you want to purchase, go through that list of things. If you're not sure, buy it in advance. You can always get a refund before your cruise if you have to.
All right, next up is critical to mark your calendar and set an alarm because check-in for your Royal Caribbean cruise begins 45 days before sailing at midnight ship time, not
Right.
necessarily your time zone. That could be a stumbling block. You need to know how to do that. How do you do that?
It's typically 45 days. I've seen some of them it's been weird where they went a day early or a day late, but typically it's 45 days in advance at midnight ship time. So if the ship is located in Miami, they're in Eastern time, it's going to be midnight Miami time that your check-in goes live. Now, why does that matter? It's important because if you check in at midnight, you're going to get the earliest boarding times,
Mhm.
which is super cool because you're on vacation and you want to get that vacation started as early as possible.
Right.
If you check in much later, you might end up with a 3 p.m. boarding time versus somebody who gets maybe the earliest boarding time of 10:30 or 11 a.m. who doesn't want an extra 4 hours of vacation.
Right.
So you don't actually have to check in at midnight. There will be people who do that, guilty. But at the very least, the next morning when you wake up, you get up at 6, 7, 8 in the morning, hop on Royal Caribbean's app, hop on the website and do your check-in so you get the earliest boarding time you can. By 8 in the morning, I can't imagine there's going to be too many people who have checked in that are crazy like the rest of us, but you want to check in as early as possible. I'll also say, if you have the Royal Caribbean app, again, it goes back to having this app. If you check in on the app versus on the website, it's going to take you through a couple of steps. One of those steps is going to involve scanning your passport. When you scan your passport in the app on your check-in, when you get to the port, you don't have to do that again. It's already been verified through there. So if you do it through the website, they won't have you scan your passport. And if you don't scan your passport in the app during your check-in, you're going to do that at the port as well. So if you want to make your port time and the time from when you show up to the time you're on the ship as low as possible, go ahead and check in on the app, have your passport, and scan your passport during that check-in process. The other thing you can do is, and this is something that I do too, I do wait up typically if I can for midnight on the day my cruise is going to check in. But on the app, they allow you to just go in and pick your boarding time. You don't have to do the full check-in. So I go in, I type in our names, I pick our boarding time as early as they'll let me, and I hit save, and then I go back to sleep. It takes me maybe 15 seconds. And then the next morning, I'll go back in, add our passport information, add our credit card information, make sure our addresses are okay. You don't have to go through the full check-in at midnight. Just go into the app, pick your boarding time, hit save, and then that's saved for the entirety. So
Now, is that app only though?
that's app only.
Right.
If you go through the website, they're out of order. So it makes you type in all the stuff first before you get to pick your check-in time. So I'd highly recommend just use the app, get your boarding time locked in early, and then go back to sleep and do it the next day.
But don't forget, you do have to check in. Just like if you're taking a flight and you have to check in the amount of time beforehand, you do have to check in, which is getting that confirmation verification that you're going to go on your cruise about 45 days ahead of time. But as Gary mentioned too, once you get to the port, you have to check in with the gate people, with the check-in to show your IDs and show your passports. So you do have a 45-day ahead of time check-in and at the cruise terminal check-in.
All right. Next up, and this one's crucial. If you're sailing on one of Royal Caribbean's larger ships, Oasis-class, Quantum-class, think the ones with Broadway shows and the AquaTheater, you're going to want to book your shows in advance. Typically, those open up somewhere between the 30 and 45-day range from when your cruise is going to happen. You just kind of watch the cruise planner and see when they show up. Again, that goes back to the Facebook group. The Facebook groups are really good about letting people know, hey, the shows are live. Go in there and book your shows. On the Oasis class, you have to book in advance the Broadway shows, the water shows, and the ice skating shows. You might be able to get on board. You might be able to wait in the standby line when you're on board. But if you know for sure you want to see those shows, just book them in advance. You get the times you want. You get the day you want. You'll get a much better seat because you'll be in the theater before everybody else because you've got a reservation. Highly recommended. That is not necessarily required for, in fact, it's not required at all for the smaller classes of ship, the Freedom class ships, the Voyager class ships, the older ships that don't have those newer venues. You'll never have a problem getting into a show. So if you're on an older Royal Caribbean ship, this tip does not apply. Don't worry about booking in advance. You'll have no issues getting to any of those shows. But if you're on a larger one, you're definitely going to book in advance. We ran into that last time when we were on Oasis class ship. We had to wait in the standby line for the Aqua show because we weren't able to get one in advance.
Yeah, it was worth it.
It was worth it, but it makes it a lot easier if you're able to get them in advance.
So our next pro tip, and I highly recommend doing this from my personal experience, while Mr. Retired Navy here knows everything about ships, it took me a while to learn this one. Before your cruise, study your ship's deck plans. These are called decks, not floors on the ship. So these are floating cities, massive, massive places that hold literally thousands, sometimes up to 8,000 other people. These ships are so huge. It's easy to get turned around. So it sounds a little nerdy, but I promise you it helps. And this is, again, inside the Royal Caribbean app, on the Royal Caribbean website. There's sites like Cruise Deck Plans where you can look at some things, see pictures of your venues, but it really helps to know what is your stateroom number? Where's your stateroom in relation to the Windjammer Buffet, to the pools, to the venues you want to go to specifically? If you're coming out of a venue, which direction do you go to get back to your room? If you're coming out of your room, which direction you go to get to the place you want to? It literally matters. It'll save you so much time.
Yeah, highly recommend. Obviously, Royals are great. They're going to be pretty basic. The website she mentioned, cruisedeckplans.com, is great because not only can you see the deck plan, they have pictures, actual, people who have been on that cruise, take photos of those venues so you can see what the venue looks like on that exact ship. Yeah. You can get pictures of your exact stateroom, video potentially of your exact stateroom to get an idea of what room you're going to stay in and what it's going to look like. Just really helpful to have some of those things in advance, that you kind of have in your head already. So when you get there, you're not overwhelmed.
Now let's talk about deciding on excursions or your walking plans, your port plans. So if you've looked outside the ship, you've looked in the ship, now you need to look at the ports where your ship is stopping. Look in the cruise planner, it could be the app, could be the website, any documentation maybe you get from your travel agent, but it'll list what cities, and therefore what countries you're going to be stopping in. So you need to look what excursions are available by location and see what interests you if you want to do one of those. Almost every single one of them costs extra money, and you can purchase those through the app. You can also decide by looking at maybe Google Maps, Apple Maps, look at that Facebook group we talked about, if you want to just go out into the town and walk a little bit. Because a lot of these ports, especially where Royal Caribbean stops, are very safe. They have very manicured, very kind of fabricated tourist areas right when you get off the ship. Just know what you're getting into so you can have the most fun.
There are some ports that you should probably not walk in, and that's about doing your research in advance. We tend to not book excursions. We've been to a lot of these ports enough times that we tend to just do our own walking tour, or maybe we just go out and walk just to kind of people watch or look at the place. When you're doing those, cannot recommend highly enough to have offline maps downloaded, either through Google Maps or if you have an iPhone through Apple Maps. They're both great. If you happen to have an iPhone, I tend to prefer walking directions through Apple Maps because when you download them offline, it does include the walking directions, not just driving directions. Instead of telling you that you can't go up a one-way street because it thinks you're in a car, it'll let you go up that one-way street and maybe find you a path that's a lot faster to get to a location if you're walking in a different country. So can't recommend highly enough to have offline maps and do a little bit of research for all those ports. But yeah, if you're not comfortable with them, the Royal Caribbean excursions are great. Book them in the cruise planner. Have a great time with them. If you've been in those ports before and you're looking for other ways or other things to do, you can look at other videos or other tips online and do those ports yourself with some kind of walking tour.
And just know if you do book a Royal Caribbean excursion through Royal Caribbean, that vendor who provides that tour has been vetted usually through Royal. So you know you are in a more reputable business. And if that tour is late coming back, you have guarantees from the cruise line that they will either get you back to the ship or they'll wait for you. If you book on your own or go out on your own, you do not have those guarantees. And if you're late, that is your problem and your money to get back to the ship.
Yeah, you definitely want to be on time. Again, going back to the app, everything happens on ship time.
Yeah.
The app will list ship time. It could be that the port you pull in is actually in a different time zone than the ship was in, and you might be off by an hour. And when that happens, if you're late, they may or may not wait for you. So always recommend if you're going to be leaving the ship, know what ship time is, or just pull the app up and look, this is ship time. I need to be back by 4 p.m. I'll be back by 3:30 or whatever it is. Don't go out in port without that, but it's important information.
Yeah.
All right, next up is packing. And Royal Caribbean is pretty well known for just being cruise casual for the most part. Shorts, jeans, a lot of swimwear, depending on where you are. So it's really not difficult to pack forward if you're just sort of packing for a cruise. However, they tend to have a lot of theme nights.
And theme nights, I think, are a lot of fun. And a lot of people on the cruise get very into theme nights. You don't have to participate, but sometimes it's fun to participate if you want to, or just to see everybody else in their nice outfits. So how do you know what theme nights are happening on your cruise? Again, this is where the Facebook group comes in handy because a lot of people will post that in the Facebook group of what night of your cruise is what theme night. So the theme nights are also listed in your app. Eventually, you'll see that closer to your sail date. Some of the examples of theme nights, Royal Caribbean almost always has Caribbean night. Think of tropical shirts and tropical printed dresses. It's something that looks like you could be wallpaper in a beach resort. Some of the other things they do are either they call it white night or red night, where all of your clothing would be all red or you wear all white. And that looks really, really sharp, especially if you go to some of their dance parties in the evening. And there's usually used to be called formal night. Now I think it's called dress your best. And it depends on your level of what you want to do. If you want to roll in shorts and t-shirt, they do not care. Your dinner will be just as perfect. We have seen absolutely people in adult prom, or Gary's worn his military uniform once or twice. We've seen people in full gowns, evening gowns. It depends on your level, whatever you want to do. You want to wear a skirt? Do you want to wear a tux? How about a kilt? It's your call.
Right. The great thing about these cruises, especially with formal night, there's photographers all over the ship, and there's some decent backdrops to have between the ship itself and some artificial backdrops. So if you have the opportunity, if you're in a large group and you don't get to dress up much, we've seen a lot of people will dress very nicely on formal night and then get formal pictures as a family. So that's always an option as well. Like Kara said, I've gone full tuxedo with a military uniform. I've also worn shorts and a t-shirt on formal night. We've gone all over that. So this is your cruise.
Yeah.
Whatever you feel comfortable with. But the important thing we're trying to give you here is the information with regards to what's on your cruise, what night it is, and then how you can prepare in advance.
Yeah.
And then a general packing rule, and this kind of applies overall, the walls on these ships are metal. And that means you can stick things to them that are magnets. So one thing we always pack, we pack cruise magnets, and essentially it allows us to hang additional clothing or a hat, or if we've got something that's wet, we want to hang it up. Or we just want to have things off the table or out of the drawers. So we'll bring a set of these magnets. We can hang them from the wall. You can hang them from the ceiling. The whole place is metal. Really, really helpful. A lot of times we'll bring a lanyard depending on what ship you're on. Some of the ships will use cards that are RFID tap cards, and you can't punch a hole in those for a lanyard. So we'll bring a lanyard with a little card attachment. Some of the older ships don't have that. They still have the old swipe system, so you can actually punch a little hole in there, and we'll put a lanyard and just hang a cards in there. We like having our cards on lanyards. This is easier than having to put them in my pockets. Some people don't like that. That's okay. But, I'd recommend at least looking into that, knowing what technology your ship has and whether you want to bring a lanyard or not. And we also always bring a fan on board, a little small portable battery fan.
Real small.
Yeah, and in fact, we'll hang those from, put a couple magnets on the ceiling and hang that there just to have some airflow in the cabin. Some of the cabins are really, really cold. Some of them are really, really hot. Some of them are perfect, but we never really know what we're going to get till we get there. So we always bring a small fan too. So you have options. All right, next up for packing purposes, for Royal Caribbean, you can bring on 1 bottle of wine or champagne per adult per stateroom. If you don't drink, that's okay. They also allow you to bring on a 12-pack of soda, juice, water, whatever it is you want, some sort of standard 12-pack. Those are okay as well. Those are going to save you some money, but they're also just great in advance if you have something that you want in particular that you can't get on board. With those bottles of wine or champagne, they have to be in your carry-on. If you put those in your checked luggage, they will get pulled and they'll put them aside and they'll give them to you at the end of the cruise. So if you want to bring them on the cruise, 1 per adult, put them in your carry-on bag, your backpack, whatever it is. When you go through security, they'll check them. Everything's great. Would recommend, and it's not classy, but I would recommend bringing a screw top. It makes opening the wine a lot easier. I mean, you can certainly bring wine with a corkscrew, but then you got to bring a corkscrew. They technically will charge a corking fee if they open it for you, but it makes it easier if you just have the screw top. You don't have to mess with it anymore. So,
and just a tip on that, it must be wine or champagne. You cannot bring a bottle of bourbon. You cannot bring a bottle of tequila.
Right.
Even if it's still a 750 ml bottle, it doesn't matter. It cannot be anything other than wine or champagne if you're talking something that contains alcohol.
Right. And same thing with it. Like I mentioned, you can bring a 12-pack of soda, water, juice, whatever. It's not a 12-pack of beer. So you can't bring beer on board. So this is literally a bottle of champagne or wine per adult, per stateroom. And then once you have them on board, they don't have refrigerators in the room. They have chillers. They'll bring the temperature down a little. It's not going to make it ice cold. It's not like a refrigerator, but it will bring the temperature down. If you want really cold wine, though, you can ask your room steward for a bucket of ice every day, and they'll bring a bucket of ice, and you can take the wine that you brought on board and have it chilled. So that's an option, too, just so you know. It's not like you just have to just put it on your desk and drink room temperature wine. There is a way to get a little colder.
One of the other tips for preparing for your cruise is to think about your main dining experience. This is every night you're assigned a dining time, and if you don't do anything, they'll assign you a table. And that could be 2 of you at a table for 12 with another family, or 2 of you at a table for 2. You don't know what you're going to get. So it's a flip of the coin, absolutely. So if you want to be with a group of people, to meet new people, talk to folks, have a really great experience with others on your cruise, or if you don't want that and you want to have a table alone, or you as a couple, Gary doesn't like new people. So we request a table for 2. But it's the same thing if you have a family of 4 and you don't want to sit with other people, you want your own table, or you do want to, you can make those requests.
Right. And it's remarkably easy. You send an email to rcldining@rccl.com. We'll put that on the screen. In that email, you put your last name, you put your reservation number and your ship name in the subject. And then in the body of the email, I always repeat that same information, my last name, my reservation number, and my ship. And then I put what my request is. I want a table for 2. If we're going with friends and there's 4 of us, we want to be all together, we'll link our reservations in advance and say we want a table for 4. But normally it's just us 2. I say I want a table for 2. And normally I ask for a table for 2 near a window. And then when we get on board, one of the first things we do when we get on board is go to the main dining room and we see if that request was accepted. Because when you send that email, you'll get an email back, but you never really know if they did it or not. So when we get on board, we'll go ask, hey, we sent in a request for a table for 2. Can you let us know? And I think it's been, 95% of the cruises, everything's been great. They've had no issues. And they say, yep, you've got a table for 2. Oh, look, you're by a window. So normally, not only do they give us the table for 2, they give us our window seat as well. And it's just a really nice experience. If we're going to be in main dining, you might as well be able to see the water at the same time.
And remember, it is a request. It's not a guarantee. If you send it, there's no guarantee you're going to get what you requested. However, you're already at no, you might as well ask.
You can always ask. And even the couple of times we've been there where they either the request didn't make it, or maybe they weren't able to accommodate it. We asked on board, and then they were able to then move us to a table. I don't think we had a window in those cases, but we did get a table for 2. So there's lots of options you can have. I mean, you can obviously let that stuff just come to you and let the cruise line provide you with whatever they're going to provide. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful table, or you can take a little control of it and ask for something that you want. Did we miss any of your pre-cruise rituals? Anything you do to prepare for cruising that we didn't cover? Let us know in the comments. Also, do us a favor, like and subscribe. See you next time.
Happy cruising.